Greg Krissek, CEO of Kansas Corn, is joining us. And Greg, what a week it has been so far as the NAFB Friends and Broadcasters in China tour is concerned, as we're in Chengdu, China right now. And as we look at things, it's been quite the interesting trip so far, but we've got a lot of things yet to come here in this trip as we make our way to Hong Kong.
Yes, we do, Greg. It's coming up real quick the next couple days. Today rode another bullet train from Xi'an to Chengdu, and saw bigger operations, ag operations, in between the mountains. We were in the mountains for about half of the trip, and then started to see the valleys and see some bigger fields of corn, of course, is what I noticed. And it's very green and lush, appears this time of year here.
And as we look at things, of course, a lot going back on the States that we'll get to in just a bit. But I find it interesting because it really is. You go from the big cities like we have Beijing, Shanghai before that, Xi'an, and then just seeing the countryside as we headed down towards Chengdu. And that even the small towns that we stopped at, small towns, relative speaking, 2.5 million. I think one was over 5 million. Not small towns in America, but you'd almost have to consider them small towns here in China.
They are, Greg. I'm learning lots about these different cities that we've been visiting. In Chengdu, again, asked tour guide, looked it up on Googling it, and turns out we're in another 12 to 14 million person city, and they told us that with the plan of moving more rural folks to urban areas over the next 10 to 15 years, this city of 12 to 14 million will double to 28 million by 2030.
And like in Xi'an, the tour guide, as we made our way into Chengdu, said, just 10 years ago, the area that we were driving through, it was all farmland.
And that was probably no more than 2.5 miles from the hotel we're sitting in right now. And today, it was all developed with skyscrapers. You can see, 30 to 40 level skyscrapers for apartment buildings. Some are, starting to be filled up. So, significant mouths to feed here in China.
Joining us on the Kansas Corn Update is Greg Krissek, CEO of Kansas Corn, on the update here on 580 WIBW. Greg, let's talk about news that it happened back in the United States. It's kind of weird to say, but indeed it is. A lot of news took place, and one we haven't had a chance to talk about was the Senate passage of the Farm Bill that took place on Thursday by a significant vote overall.
That's right, Greg. It was unclear from our time zones here what might have been under dispute for the amendments of the Farm Bill and the passage to move forward. But then clearly got to watch it. Actually woke up early this morning and turned on C-SPAN, and there got to watch the last of the amendments and the votes with that bill moving through, clearly sailing through on its final vote. Appreciate our two senators, Senator Roberts, chair of the Senate Ag Committee, all the work he and his staff have done to get us to this point. Senator Moran being very supportive of a number of the proposals in this Farm Bill. There are some amendments we're going to need to look through and get more comfortable with as they get ready for their conference committee, which sounds like is going to happen fairly quickly come July when they're back after the 4th of July recess.
There are differences between what the Senate passed of their version of the Farm Bill, what the House passed as their version of the Farm Bill. But I would think the underlying part about all this is going to end up being the funding and how much funding is going to be there to actually get this Farm Bill done.
Right. All the messaging that we hear, and certainly we hear more probably because of the Senator Roberts and his staff being in their position in the Senate Ag Committee, about how critical it is to fully fund it but not take dollars away from other commodity programs. And so finding that right balance is going to be a delicate way to get there, but it looks like there have been some steps in the way the programs are proposed today that can make that happen.
One, it's I'm sure at the very top of the list, do not take funding out of crop insurance.
Exactly, and appreciate both senators and many of the senators being stalwarts defending crop insurance. It is the key backstop for our producers at this point, and there was discussion of potentially some amendments, but nothing was successful, nothing came to fruition, and keeping crop insurance strong and fully funded as it is today is critical. It's what will stand for every step of the way.
Joining us on the Kansas Corn Update is Greg Krissek, CEO of Kansas Corn, as he joins us on the program here on 580 WIBW. Greg, one of the things that we're going to go see is some of the markets, one in particular that serves U.S. beef, but also hear a update from Joel Haggard from U.S. Meat Export Federation, of course, Kansas Corn being one of the original members. Or one of those who originally funded USMEF.
Yep, looking forward to that, and I'm learning new cities each stop along the way, and so we're moving on to Guangzhou. Sorry about that. We're moving on to Guangzhou, and it really should be a good program there. The wet market, see how the Chinese work through their food system in a wet market, but USMEF and both with pork and beef promotions and hearing from a variety of the cooperators that do that will be very intriguing to see their projections about the Chinese market.
And just to plug friends of the soy industry, we're going to go see the Bunge crushing facility too.
Right. All exciting things over as we start to wind up this trip.
Joining us on the Kansas Corn Update, Greg Krissek with Kansas Corn, as we're here in China on the Kansas Corn Update here on 580 WIBW. Not only work on monitoring the progress of the Farm Bill and the Conference Committee, but what we talked about earlier in the week concerning the RVO announcement is one that you'll obviously keep an eye on as well.
Exactly, and the Kansas Corn Growers Association is participating with National Corn in the lawsuits to put back gallons that were wrongfully taken from the small refiner waivers, and that where we're disappointed nothing was addressed in that RVO proposal this time. And we're waiting for the actual schedule for comments and hearings on this year's 2019 RVO, in which we'll be asking producers to submit comments and tell EPA exactly how important it is that we have them follow the law and keep the gallons through the RFS as they should be. And
still, the underlying theme of this trip, opportunities abound for U.S. agriculture in China.
We're great producers of product, and in some cases we are the low-cost producers of product. In Asia, it continues to be very clear that the middle class is growing, the upper middle class is growing, their diets will improve and have more animal protein and other opportunities for corn that we really want to have.